Hello there, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome to this PV Magazine webinar. I'm Tristan Rayner, editor at PV Magazine, coming to you from Berlin. And today we have a bit of a fun session that will aim to be tailored to your requests. So attendees, you are in control today, and I'll explain what I mean shortly. But first, you've arrived at our webinar today with our initiative partner Sungrow with essential tips for successful installations. Now, this is all part of Sungrow's just released Power Guide, featuring a handbook of tips that tackle commonly asked questions and requests from installers and the industry. All the answers and support will be in the guide, and we'll talk through it today with Sungrow. And the good news is, for those of you who have joined us, here in the webinar platform, there's a handout tab, and the Power Guide is available to download already in several different languages, including English, as we'll be talking in today, as you can tell, German, Dutch, and Italian, and there may be some more options down the line. And trust me, last night and this morning, I was actually fixing a washing machine, and I would have been very grateful for having a live expert to chat with, not just a manual. So stick around, this one's going to be fun. So first we'll hear from Sungrow about its current operations and then get to the Power Guide and its tips for installers. At that point, we'll actually launch a poll with some options around common troubleshooting issues that people and installers have with setting up their Sungrow hybrid inverters, or the connection between batteries and inverters, firmware settings, etc. So we'll get to all of that. And towards the end of the session, we'll also dive into our last round of questions and answers for anything that hasn't been tackled already. So the installation of PV systems and storage and doing it more efficiently and effectively couldn't be more topical. And I'm delighted to welcome back to our PV Magazine webinars, Andrea Polini, Senior Product Manager, Hybrid and ESS Distribution at Sungrow. Hello, Andrea.
Hey, Tristan. Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. And before you take the floor, Andrea, some housekeeping just for everyone here today. Yes. So as I already said, send in your questions. Andrea will be tackling everything for installers today, and this is an interactive session. So as we go along, feel free to write in your questions. We'll either ask them at the time or at the end. The idea is mostly that we'll run through the Power Guide based on your votes, then answer some questions at the end, but you're able to ask a question at any time, and if something comes up, we'll jump on it as well. Just to head off a few other things, one question we always get is will the slides be available? And of course, you're going to ask, will the Sungrow Power Guide be available? Yes, everyone today will be receiving an email from the system with a link to the recording. And as I said, you can already download the Power Guide now or later on Sungrow's website. And of course, for anything else, if you have any troubles, the PV Magazine webinar team is standing by to answer any questions you have about the webinar software or any other administrative matter that comes up. Okay, so we're all set to hear from Andrea Polini, Senior Product Manager, Hybrid and ESS Distribution at Sungrow, and stay tuned for the interactive poll coming up. So, Andrea, take it away.
Thank you, Tristan, and thank you again for being here, everybody, and for having me as well and Sungrow for this webinar. And I see there's many people joining, and it's very good to see you all. So a few words about the presentation today. So this Power Guide is a new document that Sungrow has made to help you, basically taking all the experience that we had for installation of residential inverters in the last 1 or 2 years, and all the most frequent questions that we got. We decided, okay, we should make a document that summarizes all of them and that can help some installers that are having issues when they are on site. And so this is this document that we have prepared. And in this presentation, I want to run through it, but not in the usual way. But I want you to choose, actually, which is the favorite of the topics that we are presenting here today, which is probably one of the most usual issues that you have encountered. And if the issue that you have encountered is not there, then we can, of course, address it during the Q&A session. So who am I? I am Andrea. I am Senior Product Manager, Hybrid ESS. So I work for the distribution team in Sungrow. And so Sungrow makes 2 different business. One is for large projects, and the other one is for the distribution business. So we sell to distributors sell to installers, and this is for residential or roof-mounted PV installation, most in the low voltage range. And I've been working at Sungrow for more than 3 years now, and you can see my contact details here. Feel free to reach out to me also on LinkedIn, where I'm very active. And if you have also questions on LinkedIn, I'm always available to help you. So Sungrow, I think everybody who is coming to this webinar today knows Sungrow, but maybe you don't know that Sungrow, since last year, we are number one by volume of the PV manufacturers in the world, basically installing more than 224 gigawatt worldwide, and 47 gigawatt of PV inverter installed and shipped in 2021, and in 2022 we are set to break yet another record. So in the European division of Sungrow, we basically much oversold our estimation due to many factors, in particular the political conditions, the energy conditions, and therefore the driving demand for PV systems. But in general, we have reached more than 30% market share global, and in Europe is also increasing very steadily, very rapidly, making us one of the big players of solar inverters and battery systems in the European market. And you can see the rest of the main figures here, but I think these are the main most important ones. So we do many different business, all of them related to the clean energy sector. The main one, of course, is solar inverters. And of course, we are active in an energy storage system, not only for residential systems, but also for big utility scale systems like 40-foot containers full of batteries. And also PV inverters from very, very small to very huge. But also a project development in the Asia market. EV charging is the new division, the new business that we have started at Sungrow last year. And we have already the first product as a residential EV charger that is an accessory for our hybrid inverter for the residential market. And also we will come with a whole product range of DC charger, DC charging modules, DC charging station, and other AC charger products. And also we have a floating PV division that sells floaters and also other equipment for floating PV on top of still water installations. In Europe, we have grown massively in the last years. We have now close to 400 people with 10 service offices, 2 training centers, one for the distribution market and one for the project business, logistics centers like warehouses and the logistic for dangerous goods and also for inverters, and 7 partner networks. Especially. And we support our customers with dedicated local languages hotline. And our service business is the most invested business in Sungrow in last year, where we have hired a massive amount of people and also improved a lot the processes and services to increase the quality of our service response that has been overwhelmed due to the amount of sales and the volume that we have shipped. And so the service now is, we are trying to keep up with the quality to support the huge amount of inverters that we have been selling. Our product portfolio, you can see here. So from in the residential lineup, we have normal PV inverters, and we have hybrid inverters, which is a PV plus battery together. Then we have a residential battery as well. You can see it in the picture. It's a modular residential battery. And this is very well sold in Europe, in several countries. And now our first EV charger product, first of many. And then in the commercial solutions, we have for rooftop mounted systems in low voltage range from the 20 to the 125 kilowatt. And we are in constant renewal of this lineup. In particular, we will have new products arriving starting from the beginning of next year in the commercial systems. And then for the utility scale system, we start from 120 kilowatt up to 7.2 megawatt stations with or without energy storage containers together. Also with or without a transformer system, skid systems, everything. We really try to follow a philosophy for our development of inverter, which is a self-explaining cabling, installation, and commissioning. And I think this is really important for us to reach. We want to achieve the fact that you don't need to read a manual or read a commissioning guide, or if you need some information, it should be so easy to find as possible. And this webinar of today is actually part of this initiative to try to spread the information to as many people as possible on how to solve the most common issues of our inverters. So as Tristan was saying, we have prepared this document. It is now available, and you can get it in the handouts section of this meeting. So the Sungrow Power Guide is a document that allows you to go through the list of the most frequent questions. And we will do it one by one today in this meeting, of course, and also with more time for your questions as well. So you can see indeed the service journey is very long for us, and it's never perfect, but I hope that this power guide will help you to reach it. So without further ado, I would say that Tristan, you can come in again, and we can start the polling and ask our viewers,
Sure.
which of these options would you like to start with?
Yeah, this is great. So I think for everyone who's here, what's popped up now is a poll. So your answers are important here. So, and just know you can vote for more than one option. So as you can see, the poll today is which complications do you encounter during installation? So vote away. Apparently I can vote as well, so I'll just click do it later, not to influence anything. But people, please do select the answers, submit them. We'll tally the results, and that will help guide the flow of today's event, as we were saying. So Andrea, I just wanted to ask you, as votes are coming in, how long did this guide take to put together, and what's been involved?
So we have, of course, several hotline partners in different languages in the whole Europe, and we reached out to each of them, and also to many of our customers in different events where we meet them and discuss with them one by one. And we try to make a list of the most usual questions. Many of us, so I'm product managers for pre-sales, and therefore I am responsible also to support our service colleagues. But we also have service engineers and service experts that are very expert about our product in the residential portfolio. But in addition, we also reached out to our hotline partner that are in contact with our customers and tried to let them to come up with the most important points that you see here.
So pretty interactive. That's
right.
Okay, got you. All right, so some votes are coming in. I think we'll just give it a little bit longer, just to. There's some interesting votes here as to what's winning and what's coming second. But
interesting.
Certainly, I think you were telling me before this event, the missing communication between hybrid and battery is a fairly common one.
Fairly common one, yeah, for sure.
And one of the other leaders right now is in grounding problem or error code 106. So yeah, I'm interested to get to some of these, because no doubt there's some people out there who have their own workarounds. But yeah, hearing from you will be great. So we'll just give it a few more seconds. People are submitting them. I see the results coming in. I think the only one that's not getting many results, Andrea, is missing end user email. So
interesting.
maybe we can that we'll leave that one to last. And
some of our colleagues actually seem to say that for many installers, this is actually a fairly common problem. So
interesting.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, no worries. Okay, let's close that poll for now. Then we've got those results coming through. I just need to do a tiny bit of admin to make sure I know which ones have won, which ones haven't. You can see the results there, but I just need my own setup. Okay, so let's just quickly run through some of those results. Basically, the biggest winner was missing communication between hybrid and battery. And then from there, everything was quite close. So we had a couple with 15, 14% of people, 13%, then a couple of 10%. So if you're ready, Andrea, we can just jump straight into the first one. So that was this slide exactly, missing communication between hybrid and battery. So I'll throw it to you.
Yeah. So this error could happen in both our battery and the hybrid inverter, and also other partner batteries like the BYD battery. And here you can see on this slide in particular how the communication cables should be connected. And so on the battery side, especially for our Sungrow battery, you have a patch cable like a normal RJ45 cable. And then on the inverter side, you have this green connector where you have the little numbers for the pins number written on the top and bottom of this green connector that you can see on the right side of the slide here. And so the white, orange, and orange are the Sungrow colors, and it's good that we are using these for connecting the inverter and battery together. And basically, they are, if you take a normal Cat5e cable, they are the pin number 1 and 2 on this normal Cat5e cable. So on the battery side, you just need to connect the Cat5e cable to the RJ45 connector. And then you need to, of course, when connecting to the three-phase hybrid inverter, you need to break the cable. So open the cable on the other side, and then take the white, orange, and orange wire and connect them to pin 5 and pin 7 of the battery. And you can actually make, it's very important that the cables are stripped and the no insulator is connected to the hole of the pin, because we had usually some problems with people not isolating the cables correctly. And if you want, you can also use the cable terminations as well to put in the connector, but be sure that they are terminations with long enough tips that they can reach the inside of the connector. And the error that is shown is this error 714, when the connection is not correct between the inverter and battery. If this issue persists, even though you have double or triple checked the connection between hybrid and battery, we recommend that you take another cable, just a standard Ethernet cable from your home or from whatever installation is there. Just take a standard cable and then do the same connection, connect it on the battery side to the patch connector, and then on the inverter connector the same way. If this is still not working after that, then you can definitely contact Sungrow service, and be careful to also provide us with pictures of both of the side of the connection, and then probably also with a single line diagram of how the connection was made.
I was just going to ask that if people can send in photos of their setups and
yes, right.
Feedback,
yeah. How the service is working is that we have service portal, and on this service portal, it's at the address gsp.sungrowpower.cn, but also it is at when you make an email to our service, it's called the service at sungrow-emea.com. And this email will generate automatically a ticket. And so you will be automatically responded with the ticket number. And you can use this ticket number in our service portal to then upload pictures. So in that case, you can upload pictures directly there. It can be pictures of the installation and also pictures of like drawings that you make of how you have connected things. And all of this helps us massively to help you to find the issue, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. The more pictures, the better, I suppose.
Exactly.
Okay. That sounds great. I think that's one of our issues dealt with today. So fantastic. So we may get some additional questions, but let's jump to our next highest voted issue, which is number 2 on this list. Yes, grounding problem or error code 106. So what does all this
that
mean?
we did these two at least we did in the right order in the document. Yeah.
Exactly. So go for it.
So we have found many times in our 3-phase hybrid plus battery setup, even in the single phase actually, that many errors are due to improper grounding of the installation. So grounding, of course, is very important, and it is even more important for hybrid inverters where you have 2 AC grids together. So we are providing the normal grid connection, but also the backup grid. So a part of the house load must be connected to the backup output of our hybrid inverter in order to supply in case of a grid outage. And this is the backup output. It's the second AC plug in our inverter. And it is very important that basically all of this is grounded to the same point. So not only the inverter chassis, as we can see on the bottom, but also the PE for the 2 AC connectors should come to the grounding side. So there's PE of the backup, the PE of the grid, and also the PE of the backup loads and of the normal loads should come directly to one potential point. So we have basically one point where all the grounding cables are coming, and this helps a lot with the communication signals, especially so communication between the meter and inverter, battery and inverter, and also for the stability of the backup function. So the backup function will work at best when there is a constant potential of grounding between the normal grid and normal loads and backup loads, and also compared to the grounding of the inverter. So when the grounding is improper, the error 106 will happen. This error is happening when we are checking for voltage difference between the neutral line and the grounding line, and we are seeing some variation of more than 30 volt, and this is when we show the error 106. However, it could happen that the error is not shown, and still the backup function doesn't function correctly. And one of the main culprits that we have found is indeed the missing of the grounding of the installation.
Got you. We had a question which may or may not be covered here, but someone asked, what is the recommended insulation resistance for PV array ground fault alarm, if that makes sense?
For PV array ground fault alarm, the main insulation resistance, I think it would depend from the installation location. However, I don't know the detail exactly what should be the insulation resistance of the PV array. It's a good question, but definitely,
come back to it.
Yeah, and definitely contact me or our service team with this question. And it certainly also depends from the type of inverter and that we have and the type of installation that we have.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was going to be part of this this general answer.
It's a good question, though.
Okay, no problem. Okay, with that done, let's move to our third most voted issue, which is faulty smart meter connection.
Yes.
Yep,
One
here we
of
are.
the other items that usually makes some problems for our installer is how to properly connect the smart meter. So we supply the smart meter with our hybrid inverter in the package, whether it is the three-phase hybrid or the single-phase hybrid inverter. We supply the smart meter in the package. For our regular PV inverters, actually the installer must buy the smart meter as an accessory from our product portfolio from the distributor that they choose. And for the normal PV inverter, the first thing I would say is that you need to be careful to buy a Sungrow energy meter. We are cooperating with different brands like Acrel and Chint to make the meter for our inverters. However, we are making a special version for Sungrow inverters of this energy meter. So the installer must buy the Sungrow branded Acrel or Chint inverter. Other inverter off the shelf will not work with our Sungrow inverters. So this is quite important and happened several times that people bought off the shelf a Chint meter, for example, or a Chint meter from another brand, and they have tried to connect it with our inverter without success. So this is the reason why the Sungrow inverter needs to be installed. And on the Chint meter in particular here, connected with our hybrid inverter three-phase, we are using the pin number 24 and 25 on the energy meter, 24 being RS485A and 25 being RS485B. And then we are connecting them to the same green connector, communication connector that we have in the three-phase hybrid inverter. And this is connected to pin number 1 and pin number 3. Sorry, there is a typo here, pin number 3. So to the A2 and B2. And so these are the pins that you must use. You can see from the drawing here and also from the schematic below that A2 and B2 are where the meter is connected. And so a second point here about the smart meter connection is that the hybrid inverter could be connected in parallel. So when you are connecting hybrid inverters in parallel, you have a host and a client configuration, like master and slave configuration. And the smart meter must be connected only to the host inverter. So if you have multiple hybrid inverters, you are connecting the smart meter only to the host inverter, so to the main inverter. And then to the slave inverters, they will be connected in daisy chain to the master inverter, essentially. And for this operation of installing and using multiple hybrid inverters in parallel, we are recommending to use only the same power class, meaning if you buy, you can install up to 5 hybrid inverters in parallel. We are recommending to use, for example, 5 times the 10 kilowatt or 5 times the 8 kilowatt, etc., to have the best performance. Also, you need to take care about the distance between the energy meter and the inverter. And it could be that the energy meter is actually quite far from the inverter because of the location of the installation of the distribution box of the house. And so the RS485 communication protocol can work theoretically up to 100 meters of distance. However, we are recommending to use less than 20 meters of cable between our inverter and the smart meter. If it's impossible to use, of course, this kind of only 20 meters of cable because the installation is too far away, we recommend to use a shielded cable, shielded RS485 cable. Even audio cable is quite good, like a loudspeaker cable works quite fine, we have found. And the energy meter from Chint, this one, the three-phase one that has here, has an option of also connecting a 120 ohm termination resistance to equalize the communication, the transmission channel, and to make the signal move better and without issues throughout the cable. And this is by connecting a short circuit, so a small cable, between the pins 16 and 17 of the smart meter. And this we have found helps quite significantly in this kind of smart meter connection issues. When you encounter the smart meter communication issue, you will see usually the error code 514 on our Isola Cloud monitoring platform. And this is where you can easily understand that there is something wrong with the energy meter. Also, another way you can see that there is something wrong with the energy meter is if you look at the production data on Isola Cloud, you will see that the load data, the house load data, is very similar shape as the PV production data. So when the load curve, the yellow one looks quite similar to the PV production curve, the orange one, it means that the inverter is not getting any information, any usable information from the meter, and this is why it's conflicting in the calculation of the house load, essentially. And this is also another way you can easily find that there is some issue in the communication of the smart meter.
Okay, Andrea, that's a good summary there.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned iSolar Cloud, and that brings us to the next issue, which is missing live data in iSolar Cloud. So
very good.
Let's go. How do we help?
Yes. Here we have our YNet, and this is our communication dongle that serves as both Wi-Fi and also Ethernet connection. You can see here, you can connect an Ethernet cable to the YNet. And this is delivered with all our new inverter, especially the hybrid inverter, single phase and three phase, but also the normal PV inverter. It's coming in the box for everybody. And this YNet connector is capable of live data. So basically 10-second refresh rate data. Every 10 seconds you get new data. However, because of data usage issues, we have decided to not enable this feature by default. So because maybe some customer is sensitive about how much data they are consuming on the internet. Maybe they don't have a broadband unlimited connection, and therefore the live data is not enabled by default. To enable it, you need to, after the installation has been commissioned, you need to go in the settings of your installation, and then you need to choose from the drop-down menu the communication module. By default, it will select the inverter to let you allow to make the settings on the inverter. And here you need to choose the communication dongle from the drop-down menu. When you did that, then this menu will appear in front of you, the one on the picture. And there you can see the number 1 is the live data enable switch. And there you can enable the live data. And the number 3 is the duration of the live data per day. So how many hours would you like to receive live data from the device when it is accessed? If it is turned to 24, it's meaning that the inverter will work in live data mode for 24 hours per day. And this is quite good for people that have a broadband connection or unlimited data connection, and they can handle streaming all the data from the inverter to the Isola Cloud the whole day.
Do you know how much data we're talking about here? Like what sort of numbers people have to think about in, say, a month or so on?
Let's say I would estimate less than 100 megabytes of data per day, and so then this would be the amount of data that you need to expect. It's just an estimation from my side. I think it could be even lower than that, but essentially it's not too much data essentially.
Yeah, interesting. Obviously, that's very useful to a lot of people for their installation. So
yeah, correct.
Okay, Are we finished with that one?
Yes.
So, next most voted, feed-in limitation is not set correctly.
Yes, feed-in limitation is a setting that is required by some countries like Germany, but not only. Many customers actually, for example, in Italy and Spain, don't wish to export power to the grid. And for the Sungrow inverter, the feed-in limitation settings are done either during commissioning, so during the first commissioning, then you have the option to choose if you want to do feed-in limitation or not. In Germany, the standard until now is a 70% feed-in limitation, and thankfully this standard will be removed by in January next year, and so it will be allowed to feed in the whole power for small residential installations. But until now, you need to actually set up the feed-in limitation. And so first, you need to go to the settings menu in your plant. So if you didn't set it during commissioning, in the settings menus of your plant installation in iSolar Cloud, you will need to select the hybrid inverter or the PV inverter that you want to change the settings. And then you need to do advanced settings and power settings. And in this menu, then you will find you need to set the information that is shown here on the slide, and you can find a more detailed version also in the guide where you need to set the specific limitation, FIDI limitation settings. The most important parameter would be the PV installed power, because the FIDI limitation is based on how much kilowatt peak you have installed, not the AC power of the inverter. And so the PV installed power specification is quite important. You need to tell the system how many kilowatt peak you have installed. And also you need to say how much of these kilowatt peak you would like to inject in the grid. And so you need to select, okay, I want to inject this many kilowatt peak into the grid. So please follow the instruction. It also includes special corner cases, like what to do if there is an existing PV inverter in my system, or if you are installing a PV inverter and a hybrid inverter together and I want to do feed-in limitation. And all of these is included in the guide.
Okay, and just a question that's come in from the audience on this is: can the feed-in limitation be set to 0 per phase, as opposed to the sum of the phases?
Unfortunately, not. This is not a software limitation, rather a hardware limitation, meaning our inverter is balanced, so every phase provides the same power, except if you are in backup mode, of course. Then in backup mode, every phase can be different. But in grid following mode, every phase provides the same power. So we cannot do feed-in limitation independently for each phase. I know this is a requirement for some East European countries.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pity, I think, because it's not that useful, in my opinion. But this is the case that we are developing a balanced inverter hardware.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, good question, and thanks for that answer.
Yeah, good question indeed.
Okay, yes. So we've already jumped across now to the next one, which is problems caused by obsolete firmware.
Yes, I would say this is one of the main issues we face when the inverter system and the whole Sungrow system is not working correctly or as the customer expects. This really may be due to the non-updated firmware of the inverter. So I highly recommend every customer, as soon as they are experiencing some issue, first to try to see if there is any firmware update available. And you can do this remotely, so not even going on site if the installation is online. And very important is to select number one, the inverter, and to do the firmware update. And also from the drop-down menu, you can see at number 4 here, you need to select also the communication module, so the YNet dongle, to be updated to the latest version. So this is quite important for the whole of the system to be updated. In the future, we are also adding the battery in the hybrid inverter plus battery combo as a separate item. So if you want, you can also update directly the firmware of the battery separately. And therefore, from this drop-down menu, you will need to select also the battery. This is a new feature coming maybe at the end of the month or beginning of next month.
Okay. And, you know, like my smartphone gets essentially a firmware update every month or so.
Yeah.
How often are you sending firmware updates approximately?
Because of that, the hybrid inverter plus battery combination is a quite complicated product. I think we have been updating the firmware of the whole system several times per quarter. I'm not sure if we did it once a month, but definitely several times each quarter. And it is not mandatory, of course, to install the firmware update. And this is why we don't push the firmware update to the devices automatically. If your system is working, you don't need to check for firmware updates, obviously. But if you are experiencing some kind of malfunction, then I would say the first thing to do would be to check for firmware update manually.
Yeah, sure. And I guess you might have some additional features coming through.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
for example, accessing the battery option separately, like the one that I just mentioned.
Gotcha. Yeah, great. Okay, perfect. All right. Moving on. Yes. So, wrong or no grid code chosen?
Yes. We have several cases where, for example, in some countries, you would see issues with the grid or the voltage or frequency of the grid or the way that the inverter interprets them. For example, error 13 in some countries or error 14 in some other. And this is related to most probably to the grid code that has been chosen during the installation. So we have seen several issues of customers selecting the wrong grid code during the commissioning time. And the good news is that it's possible to change the grid code afterwards. So anytime remotely, if the installation is online, you can just go to the settings menu, and then the first setting that you have on the right is this initial grid connection. So you must first select the inverter and then do the initial grid connection, and there you can select which country it is and some more additional options. For example, if the backup mode is being used or if the VD limitation is being used. And then once it's over, then the inverter will disconnect from the grid, wait a few minutes, make some more self-test, and then reconnect from the grid. So after you have done this and you are sure that the command has been sent, I always recommend to wait up to 10 or 15 minutes and see the results in the dashboard of our Isola Cloud monitoring platform.
Okay, that sounds like a good tip. Okay, let's jump straight to the next one, which is a pretty fundamental one.
Indeed.
So the system does not switch on. Obviously, you've got a problem. So
indeed, that's right. So there is not by default a certain way to turn on the system, but we have found that the most success can be had if this following procedure has been done. So you can try to turn on first the AC, so the AC grid is arriving to the inverter, then the DC, so to turn on the PV, and then switch on the circuit breaker on the right side of the SPR battery, and then wait 10 seconds, and then for models of the SPR that already include the button, that still include the button, then press on the button. But for models that don't include it, like the newer models that we have now on the market, that basically it's just a LED indicator, then there is no need to press on the button anymore. And so if this turn on procedure should not work, then I would recommend to do actually the opposite procedure. So shut down everything first. So turn off and the DC and the AC. Wait a few minutes until everything is shut down and the capacitors inside the inverters are totally discharged. And then first turn on the battery. Then wait 5 minutes. Then turn on the PV DC breaker, and then finally turn on the AC box. So you can do both of them in the different orders, and in that case you must see then that the inverter will switch on, the LEDs are on, and the inverter should recognize the battery. So you must wait a few minutes and see in the detailed information of the inverter on the Isolar Cloud web portal or in the local connection mode between your smartphone and the inverter. You should see in the Run Information tab the details of the battery appearing. The battery should be connected automatically and recognized automatically. If the battery is not recognized in that case, then we go back to the first point that we discussed today, which is that maybe the communication connection is not right between the inverter and battery.
Okay, no, that sounds pretty good. I certainly I've built things before, and you get it's all set up. You press the button, nothing happens, and you think, "Oh, what have I done wrong?" So
That's right.
It's good to know there's a process to follow.
Yeah, and when people tell you, okay, shut it down and turn it on again, you can do either of these two procedures to turn on the system. And to shut down, you really need to wait a few minutes until everything is shut down properly. Even inside the inverter, there could be more voltage inside.
Yeah, good tips. So speaking of connections, we move to our second last, which is no connection to the WinNet S dongle, which you were talking about before. So
that's right. This
yes.
guy. So you would basically, this issue happens if the installer cannot get a good connection between the smartphone app and the YNet dongle. And this actually could happen during the commissioning when creating a new installation and trying to connect to the YNet to finish the commissioning of the device, or when connecting in local access mode between the smartphone app and the YNet dongle itself to make a point-to-point connection to see the data of the system directly. The first thing that you should do is to press the YNet button 3 times, and this will activate the hotspot feature of the YNet dongle, which basically makes the YNet create a Wi-Fi hotspot. And this Wi-Fi hotspot, you can see it in your Wi-Fi preferences on your phone. So if you go to the settings on your phone, in the Wi-Fi preferences, you should be able to see, after you press 3 times the button, you should be able to see the Wi-Fi network of the Wi-Fi dongle, which is called like the serial number of the dongle. And so you can connect your phone to this and make sure, and of course your phone will signal to you that there is no internet connection through this Wi-Fi, because it's actually just connecting to this dongle, and you need to accept that there is no internet on your phone coming, and then you can move on, and you can then go back to the Isolar Cloud application and either scan the QR code or simply select a manual connection, and then you just select that this is a YNet dongle, and then you should be brought directly to the login page. So the as written in the manual and also in several of our instruction videos, to connect in local access mode, you would need to use the admin username and the PW 4x8 password, so PW8888, and then you are able to log in as an installer to the YNet dongle, and you can do the first commissioning and check the settings.
Okay, just on this, someone asks, can I use a LAN cable connection instead of Wi-Fi? And they haven't found any obvious instructions on this so far.
Yes, so you can connect it to the YNet with also with your computer, still with Wi-Fi though. So you can connect it to the hotspot of the YNet using your computer, and once you are connected to this hotspot, you can open your browser and go to the page 11.11.11.1, and this is the page of the control of the YNet. It's like basically when you log into your router, essentially. And then there you can see much of the same issues, much of the same setups and preferences as you can see on the Isolar Cloud app. So this is a possibility as well. And to connect, if you connect it directly to the YNet with an Ethernet cable, then you can use the same page, and you should be able to see the page of the YNet as well.
Okay, so Ethernet cable from YNet to... Do you have to press that button on the front there that says...
No, then of course you don't, because you don't need to create a hotspot anymore at that point.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that answers that for our audience member. Okay, and we still have a bunch of questions coming in, so we're going to get to those at the end. But we have our last formal issue here in the guide. So we mentioned this before. Our least voted, but people are still asking about it. The missing end user email.
So it could be when you are registering for an account as an installer, first of all, make sure you are selecting the installer account. And if the end user is registering for an account, please make sure that they select the end user tab during the registration so that they create an end user account. It could be that if they didn't create an end user account, then they cannot receive the email to their email box. We have had some issues regarding the special email addresses, like special different countries addresses or different personal servers addresses. We have found that the ones that work the best are outlook.com, so .com, not .de or .fr or IT, and gmail.com works very well. Yahoo.com also very well, no problem. So definitely this could be the issue. Then of course you need to check the spam folder, because it is an automated email coming, and your email address could just label it as spam. And if even then it doesn't work, you go in the list, either in your email client or even in your router, you can add system@isolarcloud.com as a list in the list of safe senders. And so in this case, then you can try again to resend the email, and it should be arriving at that point. And so the email of the owner is found in the plant information as you can see on the image on the left, in the owner's email address side. So if you want to change the owner email address to a different one, then you can do it there.
Okay, that looks good. So that brings us to the end of the power guide. So Andrea, so just let me say, we've been hearing from you, Andrea. You're part of Sungrow's hybrid and ESS distribution team.
Right.
And before we finish the formal part, you're telling us about your YouTube channel and
Yes.
a competition as well.
That's right. So I recommend to everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are constantly updating new videos, especially if you go to the playlist section, like it is shown here on the phone image. You can find Sungrow with different countries, and also Sungrow Europe. And these are playlists of videos, and there you can find different videos in different subtitles for the different languages. And there we have uploaded for our residential inverters a lot of videos about how to do the installation, the commissioning for the hybrid inverter, for the battery, for the normal PV inverter. And so it is really, really useful and quick. So maximum 10 minutes video, and you can see step by step how to do the commissioning and the installation. So many of the issues that we have presented today are actually shown in those videos as well. And then the last information I want to share with you, with a nice little images from our marketing team, is that we have started today our new photo competition. So I know many of you guys have done a lot of beautiful Sungrow installations with very good inverters and battery setups. And we would like to reward you for your hard work and also to see what you have been working on. And this is why it would be great if you can scan the QR code here, and you can enlist your pictures from your installation. You can directly upload them from your phone, and you can upload up to 3. And the competition will be over at the end of November. And we will go through them, and we will very impartially choose the best ones, and we will provide some gifts, of course. And you can win an iPad or a DJI mini drone or a few bags of goodies. And so we have more than one, and they are full of Sungrow goodies and other kind of goodies like pens, like notebooks, like power adapters, like a lot of stuff that we provide. And yeah, definitely scan here and participate to our nice photo competition.
Very good. I can only imagine the costumes that you might start seeing. But okay, so look, that finishes the formal part, but now we're getting to the question and answer session. So we're already a little bit running over, but Andrea, I assume we have you for as long as we need you.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm just going to run through some questions. Let's try and get through them fairly quick, and we'll see how many we can get through in a reasonable amount of time. So first one here is, I've got a frequently encountered issue where the system is configured successfully, but the inverter doesn't start. It's stuck in an uninitialized product status. Is there any specific solution?
So I would definitely try to do the commissioning to choose the right country code, even to choose like a generic country code, maybe like the EN 50541 country code, which is valid for many countries in Europe, and try to redo the commissioning in this way. Probably there is an issue in the commissioning setup stage. And apart from that, it could also be a firmware issue of our inverter, which is related to the country in question, and therefore please feedback to us what you have tried to do, and possibly with screenshots as well of the Isolar Cloud settings that you have done, and then we will try to clarify if there is some settings that we need to do on our side as well, if there are some firmware bugs or something that we need to look at.
Yep. So reach out if they're really stuck.
That's right.
Okay. Next up, firmware settings. If individual settings change during an update, so you have your nice setup and then you download the firmware and then you lose your settings. Is it possible to export your settings and then bring them back later after the update?
Yes. So we have, first of all, the firmware update should not change any setting. So I definitely expect that no firmware update from Sungrow would change any of the existing settings. If it does, in your experience, it may be due to the memory overwriting process, and this would be then a bug of our firmware updating process, and therefore you can reach out to us and tell us what happened, essentially. And there is still a new feature in the Isolar Cloud portal, which is called the template library, where you can basically save the settings of your device to be reapplied all automatically. So it's a way for you to save the current settings on your inverter and apply on another inverter in the future. It is not compatible with all types of inverters for now because it's quite new, but we are then bringing this feature to more inverters. And it's quite neat. It's quite quick to apply the same settings over and over again to different inverters.
Okay, yeah, I think that also answers another question someone had, which was just asking about the backup code situation and how it might be useful, especially as an installer, to.
This person may relate to how to reset the inverter to total factory settings, and the answer is that it is the responsibility of Sungrow to do this because, of course, we want to avoid cases where the people use the inverter for a few months or something and then give it away to somebody else and sell it as new after a total factory reset. But there is a way for doing the total factory reset, meaning completely removing the memory and starting over. And this can help in particular in some cases. In this case, we have a code that you can use to log in with a special administration access to the inverter. And you will need to reach out to Sungrow because this code changes every day. And therefore,
changes every day. Okay.
Yeah, and
I was going to Google it to see what it might be today.
That's right. Okay. And so we only know what the code is, and therefore we will provide it to the customers in need one by one.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much. Okay, someone says, very briefly, missing performance ratio data even with a Sungrow weather station installed.
All right. Not all weather stations are compatible with our Logger 1000 logger, and therefore it could be an incompatibility issue. It could also be a connection issue. Maybe even if it's compatible, maybe the connection is done improperly. In this case, we would definitely suggest to provide some pictures and maybe a single line diagram of how the installation has been done. And ultimately, I would say, the PR should be available when automatically when the compatible sensor is connected. And therefore, also please check the settings in the logger in case that you need to turn on that specific weather station specifically from the settings. So you can log in to the logger portal and you can check the settings in the logger to make sure that everything is set properly.
Okay, thanks for that. So getting through the questions, there's two here on limitations, feed-in limitations. So first one says, I have a question. Is there a chance to get the value? What would the inverter produce without the limitation turned on? So,
okay. Unfortunately not, because when the feed-in limitation is active, basically the energy meter sends the data of the feed-in to the inverter, and then the inverter will change its MPPT parameters to lower the amount of PV power that is produced. And therefore, it is impossible to know what is the production in case there is no feed-in limitation set, essentially. So this because the settings of the MPPTs are changed, we cannot know if the setting were remaining the same, what would be the power that we would have produced.
Sure. Okay. And then also on limitations, is it possible to limit the inverter's production without a smart meter? So they give an example. You've got a 10 kilowatt system, you have 8 kilowatt feed-in limitation. So if there's no smart meter installed, can you somehow limit it to 8 kilowatt?
Yes, it's called the static power limitation. It's another option in the feed-in limitation menu in the power option menu, and there you can definitely set a certain amount of power, and the inverter will never output more than that amount of power, regardless of what's happening in the house loads, essentially. So it's like a software limitation of the output power of the inverter, basically.
Okay. Someone asks now how to set manual settings, asking about LFSMO, which I think is the limited frequency sensitive mode.
Exactly. All right. This is a very specific question. So the question is what is it, or how to set it?
How to set it, yeah. If you want to take this as,
I think it's better.
Yeah,
indeed, it's better if you reach out to me directly by email, and then we can discuss it afterwards. Yeah,
we'll give you this person's details as well. So
yeah.
Moving on. Someone says, does reactive power influence the function of the grid-tied inverter, and what's the technical security to ensure the grid function of injection to the grid? Oh, the good function of injection to the grid.
We have several options for reactive power control. So it could be, for example, that in a certain area it is required to use a Q of U curve, meaning that the reactive power output of the inverter is limited by the local voltage. And so this is possible with up to 7 set points. You can say how much reactive power you want to inject or absorb, and based on the value of the local voltage, you can set a static power factor, for example. And so you can say that you want to operate only on 0.8 cos phi or 0.9 cos phi, positive or negative. This is possible. And several other modes of operation that may be required in different regions. So this is how this is configurable during the commissioning, and also afterwards it can be changed remotely to the inverter by sending a command. So it's quite easy to do, and I recommend that you check out the advanced settings and power control, and there you will find the reactive power control feature.
Okay. Now, I think we'll come down to the 2 last ones. One isn't a question, though. One's just feedback for you. So if you're ready for this, they say, please provide better documentation on how to set parameters in iSolar for hybrid inverters. So there you go.
Yeah. That's very good. So if you go in our website, and you can see, especially in the local language, English or German, you will find for the 3-phase hybrid inverter and the possibility of having FAQs documents there. And in addition to those FAQs, which there are 3 of them, we are also putting online soon whole FAQ website, and this website we are showing many different documents on how to set different parameters, how to realize different functions. This is not yet online, however we are working quite hard on it, and we will hope to have it online by the end of the year. But if you want to access it, you can contact our service or our hotline partner, and they will give you the beta access to this website. So it's still in the draft version, but there's a lot of content already available if you want to get access to some additional manuals and material.
Great. Okay, so there's a few other questions. Some of them are quite long and detailed, and may or may not sort of relate to what we're talking about today. So we'll obviously make sure Andrea gets those and has a look at them and may be able to help as well, just offline. But one last one I thought was kind of interesting to finish up on is how to acquire installation skills and qualifications. Interesting one.
Interesting indeed. So we are definitely working on this topic. At the moment, we have no official certification for installers, but we are working at an academy program, and that we will launch, I hope, by the Q1 of next year. And this will include, of course, online training courses, but also real life training courses. and definitely evaluation methods. And we will try to provide a lot of advantages for those who take part of this course. For example, preferential support or access to additional spare part material and all these other benefits that we could provide to our preferred installers. So this is a topic we are working a lot on, and we will be able to share more information maybe at the beginning of next year with everybody. But we are definitely looking forward for this. And yeah, regarding the other questions, definitely reach out to me by email. I couldn't. If the ones I cannot respond directly, I will forward it to our service team or to other colleagues that may be more expert than I am. And as a last comment for those who are still here, we are also gathering feedback regarding our Isolar Cloud platform, and we are looking for end customers and also installers to join in a survey for our Isolar Cloud monitoring platform, because we, of course, would like to improve it over time. And so we definitely welcome if you can contact me with my email and say that you are willing to take part of this, or also, of course, by LinkedIn, you can contact me, and we will ensure that there are some rewards for your time also by taking part of this survey for us. So very welcome if you are participating on this survey of our monitoring platform.
I'm just going to give you your email again, in case people missed it. I don't know if we can jump to that slide or not. If people want to write it down, but
you can put it in the chat or something.
Yeah.
Or this one, perfect.
Sure. Okay, I was going to. Yep. Yeah. So a.polini@sungrow-emea.com.
That's right.
Perfect. Okay. That is just about it for today. So without further ado, thanks again to Andrea. Thanks again to everyone for asking questions and for engaging with everything that faces installers today. It was fun to play host, to hear Andrea's answers, and to see that the level of support that Sungrow is giving is quite impressive. This is also my chance to thank my colleagues behind the scenes here at PV Magazine. Diana was at the wheel of this fun but slightly challenging setup today, so well done. Otherwise, the September edition of PV Magazine is out now. As you see, it's an exciting cover there made by one of the world's leading illustrators. And this edition focuses on photovoltaic production ramping up across the globe. So not just China. China is, of course, the dominant player with a supply chain of some considerable envy, but Europe, India, and the US, plenty of other places, are all aiming to start local production, build out alternative supply chains, and there's plenty in there. I've got an article in there. It's a fun edition. So not only that, we also have fresh solar and renewable energy industry news. As you can see, we have something there on actually how long residential solar inverters last. So Andrea, we missed our chance to ask you about that, but maybe on the next time. And there's a 10% off code there for our webinars as well. So not only that, we also have, I said webinars, but I meant the magazine. Anyway, we also have plenty more great webinars coming up. Coming up on Monday, there's a look at battery energy storage systems in the MENA region. And then next Wednesday, I'm back hosting, and we'll get into some of the EU's regulations being implemented slightly differently in each country around feed-in certification. How it's actually making it easier for solar park developers, EPCs, TSOs, and DSOs, and who's making certified equipment. So I'm looking forward to that next week. And that's just about it. Thank you all for joining. As I said, one last thing, a survey will pop up after this webinar. And of course, we'd appreciate your thoughts and insights as to how it all went. We do this for you, so any feedback will go far. And thank you all for watching again. And for wherever you are in the world, I wish you a good day or good evening. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye now. And thanks again, Andrea.